Well, the wait is over. Australia have named their new test opener department, Usman Khawaja. Nathan McSweeney has been given the job of opening for Australia against India in the upcoming Border Gavaskar Trophy. You are listening to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Menners, and joining me to go through Australia's test squad announcement is Gav Joshi. Gav, how are you?
I'm good. Really looking forward to this series. The squad is out. The Indian squad is out. Can't wait.
Absolutely. And listeners, just so you're aware, I did not fire Gav during the winter from the podcast. He's actually gone and had himself a kid. So he was pretty busy during the winter. That's why you haven't heard him on the podcast. But Gav, it's great to have you back.
That's why I've got noise cancellation, so you don't hear all the crying in the background. Yes.
All right. So the Australian selectors announced the test squad today. I guess there's no surprises, but Nathan McSweeney was announced as the test opener. Then they've picked Josh Inglis as the spare batter, and they've picked Scott Boland as the spare bowler. I mean, let's go through all of them individually. We'll start with Nathan McSweeney. I think he ran the best race in the Australia A games. He made those two scores in the first game. And then in the second game, when Australia A had a stiff little chase yesterday as we record this, he played pretty well, I thought. He didn't make a huge score, but he got through a tough phase, made 25 off 69. And, I like what I see from McSweeney.
Yeah, there's an assurance about him. You know what you're going to get. I think there's a bit of uncertainty about someone like a Sam Constas, who was in the mix as well. And I think Bancroft is, to be fair, I think tried, tested, done. I can't see Cameron Bancroft being picked for Australia again. Marcus Harris, a great innings yesterday. I think there's just a little bit of too much.
Golden Duck yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, too much similarity between Harris and, again, the age factor working against those two. You said, so I think that's where McSweeney, and the way he batted, having been commentating on that match, the A-Tour matches, he's just so short of his game, and he's 25. If you go back, Australian cricketers, that's been the age that most prime Australian cricketers have made their debut, 24, 25, and they've gone on to bigger and bigger things. So I think time is right. He knows his game. Like you mentioned, I mean, he had some testing time in that match at the MCG. I think he just looks assured. He feels like he can't, so as an opener, you want somebody who can sort of wear away the opposition, and he's that kind of a batter, especially given the Australian batting, especially top four. I'm going to put them workmanlike, and then allows that freedom for your 5, 6, and 7. So I think the right choice. I think whether he's open or not, he's ready, and I think they've made the right choice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, on the other people, so for Cameron Bancroft just had a really tough start to the summer. I know he was the leading Shield run scorer, but he could hardly score a run this summer. A golden death knell for him. And I think Marcus Harris, I'm not so worried about the age factor, but I do think he's a little bit of a flat track bully, and also some of his dismissals in the A series were a bit worrying. He's a little bit loose outside off stump, and I think the step up to test level might be very challenging for him. On Sam Constas, he made 73 not out for the Australia A in the last innings of the second game, and I thought that has probably not cemented him as the opener when Khawaja retires, but if you were to sort of pencil in who'll opener when Khawaja retires, I think Constance has the front running there. So that was the three who probably didn't get picked. Do you agree with me about Constance?
Yes and no. The other big factor is watching McSweeney. I think he knew how to play spin bowling, and let's look at it. It's just not these 5 tests against India. I think Australian selectors, and fair to say their planning hasn't been really well thought out, because we wouldn't be having who's going to open if pushing Steve Smith up. We probably try to sort this year out back end of last summer, when the West Indies were here and going to New Zealand. So I think they've learned from that. I think they've got one eye towards that Sri Lanka series. And given what I saw by McSweeney, I think he can handle spin bowling as well. And that's where I think there's a big question mark, probably still on Constance, but he's still got a fair way to go. So I'm not sure if he's a certain walk in. He's definitely got ability. Whether if who knows, Khawaja doesn't know when he's finishing off minutes. I mean, he could finish off after the India series, and if
Absolutely.
he does, then I don't know if Constance is the man to go to open the batting Sri Lanka.
I think in Sri Lanka they could, throw a Travis Head or someone up the order to attack the new ball. But yeah, so look, I think Constance has done well, but I think McSweeney was the right pick. And I commentated, and I actually think you did the game. It was a March Cup game, New South Wales v South Australia a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago at the SCG. And he made some runs, and I came away from watching him very closely thinking, this guy's a future Australian player. And why I thought that was, he's very organized mentally and the way he bats. He's got a pretty uncomplicated technique. It's very classical, and he seems to know.
It's very Marnus-like, isn't it? He just looks like a clone of Marnus Labuschagne.
Exactly, but I would even say a little bit more elegant than Marnus. I think his stroke play, when McSweeney plays, like he drives beautifully. He looks good when he's playing his shot. So I thought McSweeney was always there or thereabouts, and I'm glad this summer he's nailed it. Like that, you can't argue with the fact in every form. So they sort of made the decision a little bit easier in the end on the selectors.
Yeah, you said no surprise. Was Josh Inglis a surprise? Because remember, because it's not about just picking 11, 12. It's that 13th person or 12th person has become so important now because of the concussion rule. And that's why Matt Renshaw went to New Zealand, because he was assured of a place that Matt Renshaw can bat in the middle order, can open the batting. Inglis, of course, can don the gloves. We know how important that can be. Say if Alex Carey has, hopefully not like concussion, takes a blow or injury, then he can just, and he's been in good form. So I actually expected Marcus Harris still to be in that 13 because, he could have opened the batting, or sort of, McSweeney could have slid down if there was a concussion or anything happened during the game. So I actually was a little bit surprised by English's conclusion, but to be fair, I like it. Look, if something happens to Khawaja and he can't open, then maybe Marnus can shift up. So I think they've got, or even Steve Smith probably can open the batting again. So who knows what we might get, but I really like that. I think it was very proactive. I think it was a little bit out of the square thinking, because I expected Marcus Harris to be there. But Inglis, I think, he's in really good touch as well. We've seen that in the one-day game. So that I think it was a surprise. I didn't expect him to be in the 13.
Yes, I'm a bit like you. So I think I thought they would probably name like a Harris or a Bancroft or someone like that as the spare batter, and maybe even leave us dangling as to who was going to be Khawaja's replacement until closer to the test match. But I like the fact that they've rewarded Inglis for exceptional form at domestic level, a couple of Shield hundreds, runs for Australia. I mean, he looks a gun. I mean, Michael Vaughan was waxing lyrical about him on the Fox coverage the other night, watching him bat against Pakistan in the ODI. So I like the inclusion. So what they've really done here is, they've picked McSweeney at the top, and then they've got Inglis as a middle order replacement, as you say, if there's an injury or concussion replacement. But I also want to flag a couple of other issues. Travis Head this year in Test cricket is averaging 32. Mitch Marsh in Test cricket this year is averaging 22. If our middle order starts poorly against India, and India would sneak a Test win and get ahead in the series, there's every chance that Inglis could come in as a straight selection replacement. If a Marsh or a Head starts the season slowly. Now I know people say, how can you drop Travis Head? Well, if you're averaging 30 at Test cricket in a year, I'm afraid you're in the gun.
Virat Kohli's averaged 30 in the last 5 years, and India haven't dropped him. So,
what is it? 2 centuries in 5 years for Kohli at Test level.
so I think Travis Head's on that basis. I think Travis Head's quite safe. But no, I agree. But it might be those. Travis Head and Mitch Marsh, like I said, I think this Australian team is so workmanlike in the top 4. I think the job might be to get through India, not lose those early wickets, even if the score, and we've seen that trend during the Ashes, even in England, they didn't sort of go Bazball to Bazball. Australia is pretty content in scoring that 3.5 and over. And where the game changes rapidly, we even saw it in the World Test Championship final. Where Travis Head just came in and blasted Mitch Marsh, blasted Alex Carey's been scoring. His strike rate has been upwards of 65, 70 in the last sort of 10 odd Test innings. So I think that's where Australia's going to play. So that's why that McSweeney, Constant's a little bit more aggressive, but I don't think Australia's looking for that brand of player, given the style of cricket that they're playing. So you're right. I don't think. There might be a bit of pressure, but Inglis is the right bloke to probably fit into that middle order. I'm not sure about, why didn't they include someone like an Aaron Hardy or Bo Webster? Yep.
So I've got thoughts on that. So first, it's just on Inglis though, but I agree with you. Australia want to set the foundation, and then they want Head, Marsh, and Carey 5, 6, 7 to do what they do best and score quickly, take the attack to the bowlers, and therefore, if Head or Marsh gets dropped or injured, Inglis is your perfect replacement. He can come in and play the same role, even if Carey gets injured. So I like that. All-rounder wise, so judging from what they've said coming into this series, I think if they bring an all-rounder in, it'll be in tests that are coming. So while the fast bowlers are fresh, I think they're just going to go with the fast bowlers. They've got Marnus, they've got Marsh, they've got Head even who can bowl some overs. But then as the series goes on, depending on how long the tests go, if they do go into a 5th day and the guys are bowling a lot, then I actually think the all-rounder who would get picked is Bo Webster. I mean, I don't want to sleep on Webster. He had a fantastic A series with the bat and ball. He's done it at all levels, at domestic level. He looks like a hell of a cricketer.
Well, I mean, there's 2 arguments, right? Where you say a Bo Webster, like we've done a lot of Shield over the last few years and watched Tasmania in terms of commentary and covering it, and you think Bo Webster, if he's playing for Australia, we're in trouble. The counter argument is Bo Webster was the Shield Player of the Year last year. As you mentioned, had a terrific A tour. I was so impressed with his innings, not just yesterday, but he's promoted himself to number 5. And it got the job done in Mackay as well. So why can't he do it? And his bowling's pretty good. He's just that backup seamer. But I think that's all going to depend, like you said, on the duration of the test matches, the bowling workloads. Is Mitch Marsh going to bowl? What are conditions going to be like? So I think those things are, the selectors will get to that a little bit later on in the series, maybe after second test, depending on how Australia is travelling or the result of the series before that test in Brisbane.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I heard Bo Webster interviewed recently, and he's kind of sort of found the thing that unlocks his game. And he actually said it's not training as much, that he actually doesn't train as much as he used to. And he finds that's better for his game. He just goes out and plays now. And, he found going to England in the winter, very beneficial, much more than an off season and a pre-season. So, he's definitely come on in leaps and bounds. I don't think he's the same cricketer we saw.
But you don't think an Aaron Hardy's ahead of Bo Webster?
I think they're pretty close, but I think right now, if they were picking an all-rounder, I think they'd go for Webster. Just because he's playing more first-class cricket. And he might be a smoky to go on the tour of Sri Lanka, where they might need, to pick 3 or 4 spinners and a couple of all-rounders to take the new ball.
Yeah, good shout. I mean, that's a long way away, but I'm still, if Bo Webster's playing for Australia, then nothing against Bo Webster, but I think where we've got all these all-rounders. Like, really, we've gone to Bo Webster, but like I said, I mean, if he's the Shield Player of the Year, then
Yeah.
but
Anyway,
look,
he wasn't included. So we've
no,
go on.
no, I'm saying just, in terms of the squad, the bowlers really picked themselves, don't they?
And I guess unlucky for game and wasn't available for selection, I think, for this test match. So Scott Boland got the spare bowling spot. But, looking at the way Neser had bowled in these Australia A games, he just as easily could have been that spare quick if he didn't get injured. And I'm curious which way the selectors would have gone had Neser been available for selection, because I thought, as usual, he's been just bowling superbly.
Yeah, and I like especially, who knows, if the test match was at the Gabba, then he might have, but that's all circumstance, because he's not going to be there. I think, I think Boland's the right choice. I think Boland's, if any of the top three get injured, Boland's the person that steps in. It's been like that for, 18, 24 months now. So, I mean, no doubts about that one.
Yeah, so Boland, the spare quick, and I mean, I know Josh Inglis was supposed to skip the last 3 T20 games for Australia, so I'm guessing he'll still do that and then join the test squad. I don't think they'll do anything funky for the first test. I think we'll just see McSweeney come in at the top of the order. Inglis will be the spare batter, and Boland will be the 12th or the 13th player. Like, I think we know that first test team unless there's an injury.
Nah, pretty much. And if there's injury to bowlers, Boland will step right in. I guess the only spanner in the works in terms of injury is if there's injury to someone like Usman Khawaja, but they'll probably get someone like a Marcus Harris straight in. So that would be the only where there's no. But the injuries, you can't plan too much for injuries. I think they've picked the right squad. I like Inglis's selection, as I mentioned. It's a bit out of the box, but I think it's clever thinking to George Bailey and Paddy Cummins. And from what I hear, they just like having Inglis around. I think players really adore him. And just, I think he's got a really good cricketing brain. And I know I heard from a couple of the Australian players, they felt that knock in the semi-final of the World Cup when he came out to bat on that turning pitch against South Africa. And he got Australia home, or he made an innings of
30 odd, I think.
Yeah, I think that just changed the mindset. Like, this man is ready to go. Well, firstly, take on the game, but just sort of back himself, and he succeeds in pressure scenarios. So I think I'm not surprised by that. So that one's I'm giving a big tick to George Bailey, Paddy Cummins, and Tony Dodoband, and whoever else has picked this team.
Indeed. All right, listeners. Well, that's our reaction to the first test squad that has been picked by George Bailey and his selectors. That's right. Nathan McSweeney gets the call up. So does Josh Inglis. Scott Boland is the spare quick. Gav, we're going to catch up in the next few days and start with a more thorough preview. I'd really like to talk to you about how the Indians team is shaping up ahead of this summer. So, get studying, because we're going to do a deep dive into what the Australians should expect from this Indian team.
Absolutely. Indians fly out. Well, the first batch comes out on today. They depart India on the 10th. Second batch comes in 11. If you're wondering why 2 separate batches, well, there's not enough business class seats to accommodate people. So I think there's only 24 business class seats, so they have to come in 2 batches. So there you go, Menace.
Excellent. Well, listeners, stay tuned for more Cricket Unfiltered. We'll be back during the week. Me and Gavin, actually a host of others. Jason Frazier is joining the show later in the week. Gav, you have a great day, and listeners, we'll be back soon.